Hi guys, my name is Nicolette Mashile and I'm also known as the Financial Bunny. Now, one of the things that keeps me up at night is what is the formula of financial freedom. But I think it's also important to define what financial freedom is. And of course, many of us have our own definitions and interpretations of what we think financial freedom is. But ultimately, we all come down to not wanting to have money problems and being able to live a good quality life to our own design without having to worry about unexpected expenses that may pop up right now or in the future, worrying about will I have enough money in the future, being able to live a life that does not have any money worries. Now, one of my favorite sayings is by Simon Sinek, and he says that success is not in the intensity, but rather in the consistency of doing those everyday things to make sure that you get the desired result. Then I thought about it in the financial freedom perspective, and I was like, well, that means that financial freedom is not something that happens to a person by mistake. It is ultimately then a culmination of the decisions that you make on a daily basis. So how do you live a financially purposeful, driven life? Well, we've come up together with the guys at Mr. Price Money with a checklist for you to be able to start living a life that is working towards financial freedom. At the top of that list is, of course, budgeting. Budgeting. Now, budgeting is so important because it gives you an overview of what your month is going to look like, not what your month looked like. I think that's really important because remember, budgeting is simply telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. A lot of us have kind of done things the other way around, where we look at the budget from the end of the month and see what did I do with my money in the last month. That's a good thing to do because that's reflecting. However, you've got to reflect and fall forwards. So in other words, you've got to look at what did I do last month? How do I ensure that the next month that is coming, I allocate enough money to my needs and wants, and where I may have overindulged, how do I cut down? So ultimately, you are creating what is called a spending plan for the money that you make every single month. So it's important to make sure that you budget. Now, the second thing is you need to maintain an emergency savings account. Yes, emergencies don't happen every day. And that's the trick about emergencies. They're so unexpected. They can happen at a time where they can financially catch you out. And you don't want to find yourself in that type of a situation. Let's look at COVID-19, for instance. Some people had to take salary cuts because rightfully so, the economy had slowed down and employers could not perhaps pay full salaries. So if the employer themselves had an emergency fund, it would have worked in quite an advantage for their employees. But also as an employee, you do have the responsibility to keep an emergency fund for yourselves, because when an emergency strikes, sometimes it may need a financial response. The third thing that you've got to look at is starting to build yourself an investment nest. What do we mean? Well, let's differentiate between saving and investment quickly. When you are saving, you are putting away money for some sort of future use or for a specific goal. When you are investing, you are growing your money because you've got a financial goal in mind. That financial goal may be retirement. That financial goal may be a better quality life. But remember, you've got to put your money to work so that it assists you in being able to design that life that you're living. The next thing is to lower your debt to income ratio. It's so important. In South Africa, we know that most households are spending 70% of their income servicing debt. Now, that is quite high because it means that for every 100 Rand that is earned in a household, 70 Rand goes to servicing debt. We want to bring that number a little bit down. We want to bring that ratio a little bit down. So it's important to make sure that all your high interest rate debt, you try to bring it down as much as possible. The fourth thing that you need to obviously do is to also look at your credit score. Yes, credit is something that you need to use when it is needed. For instance, if you want to buy a house. In South Africa, a majority of us are not able to buy homes or houses cash, which means that we do need the help of the banks, right? So for you to be able to be seen as a credit-worthy person, you need to make sure that you are taking care of your credit score. How do you do that? Well, you need to pay your debts on time as per your agreement. That credit agreement that you signed stipulates when you are going to pay and how much you are going to pay. Making sure that you to stick to those terms and conditions assist you in building a good credit score. The other thing is, don't miss out on any payments. Make sure that your credit utilization is kept low. How much of the credit that you have been given access to do you actually use? Very, very important things that will assist you in making sure that you are building a credit-worthy credit score. The other thing you need to remember, which is number 5, is having that financial emotional intelligence. It is so important to not get swayed by emotions when it comes to your money. Make decisions that are sound and that you can justify outside of your emotions as to why you've made a certain decisions. Take buying a car, for instance. We always preach that it's important to buy a car within your affordability and not a car that's based on what status you are trying to project. And the last one you need to look at is how to diversify your income streams. How do you make money? It's so important to make sure that you've got more than one way of making money. Now, what does this actually mean? Do you need to get an additional job? No, not always or not necessarily. Some of us have passions. There's certain things that we'd love to do. So even if you are getting an extra 100 Rand, 200 Rand, 300 Rand for your passions, monetizing your passions, for instance, let's say becoming an influencer and doing influencer work. Or for instance, you love baking. You could be baking scones on weekends for those people that may want to buy scones from you. If you like to knit, you could knit scarves, especially in the winter months. So there's quite a number of other ways in which you can derive an income. And it's important to make sure how you actually get your income is diversified, because if something happens to your job, you have other ways in which you make money to fall back on. Now, this is how you can start your journey towards financial freedom.